The night Emily Carter realized she had run out of choices, she was standing behind the polished marble counter of one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, crying so quietly that she hoped no one would notice. But someone did. And what happened next would change her life forever. Emily had spent years learning how to hide her pain behind a smile, serving wealthy customers while worrying about unpaid bills, her sick mother, and the fragile future of her little sister. That night, however, the pressure became too much. She covered her mouth with one trembling hand and whispered through her tears, "I need a boyfriend by tomorrow." She had no idea the most powerful man in the restaurant had heard every word. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can give someone a second chance when they need it most, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like this to you. Emily had never expected her life to become so complicated. At 27, she worked long shifts at the luxurious Belmont restaurant, where businessmen arrived in expensive cars and women carried handbags worth more than Emily's yearly salary. She didn't resent them. She simply wished life had given her a little more room to breathe. Every morning before work, she prepared medicine for her mother, packed lunch for her younger sister Lily, and checked the growing stack of bills hidden inside an old kitchen drawer. Her mother had been ill for months, and Emily had quietly taken responsibility for everything. She never complained because she knew Lily was already frightened enough. Then came the message that shattered her carefully balanced world. Emily's aunt, who had always treated the family with kindness, called to tell her that Lily's school scholarship would be cancelled unless Emily attended the following day's family charity gala with a partner. The scholarship committee wanted proof that Lily had a stable family environment after a bitter dispute involving their late father's relatives. It was unfair, but Emily couldn't afford to fight it. Without the scholarship, Lily would have to leave the school she loved. Emily promised she would bring someone. The moment she ended the call, she realized the terrible truth: she didn't have anyone to bring. Her friends were married, engaged, or living far away. Her last relationship had ended 2 years earlier when her boyfriend left after learning how much responsibility she carried. Emily had promised herself she would never beg anyone to stay again. But now Lily's future was at stake. She stood behind the restaurant counter, staring at her phone, and finally broke down. She whispered that desperate sentence without realizing someone was standing only a few steps away. His name was Daniel Hart. At 38, he was one of the city's youngest billionaires, the owner of a technology empire and several luxury hotels, including the building where Belmont Restaurant operated. To everyone else, Daniel was intimidating, distant, and almost impossible to impress. But Emily didn't know that beneath the tailored suit and controlled expression was a man carrying his own private wound. His younger sister had died years earlier after being abandoned by people who could have helped her. Since then, Daniel had developed a deep hatred for people who used wealth as an excuse to ignore suffering. Daniel slowly approached the counter. Emily immediately wiped her tears and tried to straighten herself. She apologized for being emotional, expecting a warning from management. Instead, Daniel looked at her and calmly said, "I'll do it." Emily stared at him, certain she had misunderstood. When he repeated that he would pretend to be her boyfriend for one night, she nearly dropped her phone. She refused at first. She told him it was impossible, embarrassing, and completely inappropriate. Daniel simply asked one question: "How much does this mean to you?" Emily looked down at her hands and admitted that it meant everything. Her sister's education depended on it. Her mother depended on her. She didn't want money from him. She only needed someone to stand beside her long enough for her family to have a chance. The next evening, Daniel arrived at Emily's tiny apartment in a dark suit, but instead of acting like a billionaire, he carried a small box of pastries for her mother. Emily was stunned. He had remembered that her mother was ill. At the charity gala, everyone expected Emily to arrive alone. Instead, Daniel walked beside her and gently placed his hand on her back. Whispers spread through the ballroom instantly. People recognized him. The billionaire had brought the waitress as his date. Emily felt humiliated by the attention, but Daniel never let her feel small. When someone made a cruel comment about her job, Daniel quietly responded that the restaurant staff worked harder than most executives he knew. When Lily nervously approached them, Daniel knelt down to her level and spoke to her as if she were the most important person in the room. For the first time that evening, Emily smiled. But the real shock came when Emily's aunt announced in front of everyone that Emily was only pretending to be with Daniel. She had discovered the arrangement and wanted to embarrass her. The room fell silent. Emily's face turned pale. She expected Daniel to walk away. Instead, he stepped forward and told the truth. He admitted that their relationship had begun as an arrangement, but he refused to let anyone shame Emily for fighting to protect her family. Then he revealed something nobody expected. He had spent the previous night reviewing Lily's scholarship case and had discovered that the cancellation was based on false information submitted by a relative who wanted the family property. The truth came out quickly. Lily's scholarship was restored, and the person responsible was exposed. Emily stood there in disbelief, tears filling her eyes. Daniel had gone far beyond what he promised. Days passed, and Emily returned to work expecting everything to return to normal. But Daniel kept finding reasons to visit the restaurant. Sometimes he ordered coffee. Sometimes he simply sat at the counter and asked about her mother's health. Slowly, the arrangement became something neither of them could explain. One rainy evening, Emily found Daniel waiting outside the restaurant. He wasn't wearing his usual confident expression. He looked nervous. He told her that when he first heard her crying, he thought he was helping a stranger. But somewhere between the fake smiles, family problems, and quiet conversations, she had become someone he couldn't imagine walking away from. Emily cried again, but this time the tears were different. She realized that the man who had entered her life pretending to be her boyfriend had become the first person in years who saw her not as a waitress, not as a caretaker, and not as someone struggling to survive, but simply as Emily. Months later, Emily's mother was healthier, Lily was thriving at school, and Emily had started studying hospitality management with Daniel's encouragement, but she insisted on paying her own way. She didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to build her own life. Daniel respected that more than anything. On the anniversary of the night they met, Emily stood behind the same restaurant counter. Daniel walked in, smiled, and asked whether she still needed a boyfriend. Emily laughed through tears and told him, "No. I need someone who plans to stay." Daniel reached for her hand and answered, "Then I'm here." And sometimes, the greatest love stories don't begin with two people looking for love. They begin when two broken people simply decide not to walk away from each other. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. And before you go, leave a special comment saying, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one small act of compassion can completely change someone's future.